Hello, everybody. Welcome back to I'm Not Crazy Podcast. Cameron Jones here, along with my co-host
Nicole.
As I promised, I'm going back to the Soothsayers, Part 2, Seeing the Future. I did do a lot of time science stuff last week, right?
Yeah.
Or last episode. But I didn't even really touch on what a soothsayer is. So I figure I should...
I'm going to be honest, I never heard the term soothsayer.
Okay, well then...
I thought you made it up. I was like, what the fuck?
No, it's a real thing. So I figured that might be the case for other people as well. So
yeah.
A soothsayer is a person supposed to be able to see or foresee the future. Sooth is an archaic word meaning truth or reality that dates back from Old English and was used until about the first half of the 17th century. So they're truth sayers. They're telling you...
So they're truth tellers.
Yeah, they're telling you the truth. But as I said with the last time travel episode, I have a few more people I want to touch on, and I'm going to continue with Edgar Cayce. Have you heard about this person before?
I don't think so.
Probably not. I hadn't either. I wanted to get a wide representation of people seeing the future in different ways they might be doing it. So this is another person who through trance and hypnotism sees the future.
Great.
So Edgar Cayce, who lived from March 18th, 1877 to January 3rd, 1945, was an American clairvoyant who claimed to speak from his higher self while in a trance-like state.
Okay.
His words were recorded by his friend, Al Lane, his wife, Gertrude Evans, and later by his secretary, Gladys Davis Turner. He is said to be the most documented psychic of the 21st century.
Wait, the most documented?
The most documented.
But we're not familiar with him?
Not the most popular, maybe, but he's had the most research and science done on him and his psychic ability.
Okay.
He's the most documented.
Okay.
So during the sessions, Cayce would answer questions on a variety of subjects such as healing, reincarnation,
Okay.
dreams,
Great.
the afterlife,
Love it.
past lives,
Great.
nutrition,
What?
Atlantis,
Okay.
and most importantly for us today, though, future events. He also
Nutrition.
Yeah. Well, because as we'll see, his main focus wasn't seeing the future. It was actually diagnosing health problems in people's bodies while under hypnosis. But
I like how you throw everything in there and then you're like, nutrition.
that was part of his thing too. He was trying to start a whole movement. He was a not doctor. Well, you'll see. Let's just get into this here. Okay. So Cayce was a devout Christian and a Sunday school teacher, and he said that his readings came from his subconscious mind exploring the dream realm, where he said all minds were timelessly connected. I like that idea. We're all connected timelessly. Cayce founded a nonprofit organization, the Association for Research and Enlightenment, to record and facilitate the study of his channeling and to run a hospital. So let's take a look at his early life to see how he came across this ability, maybe, where it came from.
How early did this start? He
Well,
was just a Christian schoolboy,
He had some clairvoyance as a younger child, we'll see when we get into this. But the actual, hypnotism and, the trance stuff later in his adulthood.
Okay.
So Cayce was born in Christian County, Kentucky. His parents, Carrie Elizabeth and Leslie Burr Cayce, were farmers and the parents of 6 children. You need them little hands working the land. And we've come across this. He was very close with his grandparents, but tragically witnessed his grandfather's death on the farm in June of 1881 at the age of 4.
Whoa. Did they say how Grandpa died?
Yeah. On a horseback ride, his grandfather steered the horses into a small pond on the property to cool the horses off.
Yeah.
But the horse became spooked and dragged his grandfather underwater, and his foot got caught in the saddle.
Ooh.
So Edward Cayce just watched his grandfather drown slowly from the shore.
Ugh.
As a child, Cayce reportedly saw the ghost of his deceased grandfather in the barn. He would tell him Civil War stories and allow him to stroke his whiskers.
I would not.
Because, that's comforting.
I would not stroke whiskers.
That's what he's doing.
Okay.
He said that it was a ghost because it became transparent if he looked hard enough. So possibly a sensitive, at least, seeing spirits from a young age.
Yeah.
Cayce was brought to church at the age of 10, where he became engrossed in the Bible. Over the next 2 years, he read it from cover to cover a dozen times, reading it every single day. He prayed.
Wild.
Yeah, he really liked the Bible. He was really into.
So
his
are
faith.
we led to believe right now that witnessing his grandfather's death kind of triggered?
Possibly.
Okay.
People do say that. There are some speculation on that, plus maybe an accident when he was later spurred it on, but it seems like maybe he's just sensitive. He just has abilities.
Okay.
So he prayed that he would be able to help people and eventually received a vision from his prayer. He said, "A glorious light, as bright as the morning sun, seemed to fill the whole room, and a figure appeared at the foot of my bed. And an angel, or what I knew not, patiently said that my prayers have been heard. You will have your wish. Remain faithful. Be true to yourself. Help the sick. Be afflicted."
It's pretty encouraging.
I also found an account that said that an angel met him in his shack in the woods. So then I did a whole.
Oh my God.
I did a whole bunch of.
So what was he doing in this shack in the woods per se?
Well, I did a bunch of research into the shack after that. He just had a fort in the woods off his property where he would go and read the Bible and pray.
Okay.
So the angel might have.
So he wasn't doing any funny stuff?
I mean, maybe, but he said that he was just out there reading the Bible. And judging on his character
Aren't we
throughout
all?
this episode, I'm led to believe him.
Okay.
So Cayce said the next night, after a complaint from his teacher, because he wasn't a great student and he generally found it hard to focus on his lessons, and also because he had a vision from an angel in the woods, so apparently he had trouble sleeping that night and was a little spacey in class.
Okay.
His father, though, ruthlessly tested him on spelling and angrily knocked him out of his chair because he kept making mistakes. Because, that helps you spell.
Yeah.
Cayce said that he heard the woman with wings tell him that if he went to sleep, they could help him. He put his head on a spelling book and fell asleep. And this is why I said this earlier. And when his father returned to the room and woke him, he knew all of the answers and repeated anything in the book. He said that his father thought that he had been fooling him and knocked him out of the chair again.
Oh my God.
Reasonable response. And Cayce said that then he studied all of his school books that way by sleeping on them.
Okay.
He said that by 1892, he had become the best student in the class from being pretty close to the worst. And on questioning, Cayce told his teacher that he saw pictures of the pages in the books. And his father was now proud of his accomplishments and spread the news of his power. So it sounds like
Did he not just have photographic memory?
He has a photographic memory is what it sounds like.
Right.
But he claims he's not reading these at all. He's getting the photographic memory by just sleeping on the books. He'll put them under his pillow and obtain all the knowledge.
I'm going to try that.
I think we should.
I'm doing that tonight.
We don't have a lot of smart books. We just have we have fiction.
Yes, we do. We have smart books.
Okay. Okay. So
if you look at the bottom shelf of our bookshelf, which you don't take a gander at often, there are some intellectual books. We are some intellectuals.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. So this is a skill that he would use again to acquire getting jobs with his photographic memory, helping to memorize company catalogs and inventories, quickly being able to learn businesses.
You know what I was going to say though?
What?
I was gonna say we might not look like it, but we read good.
We can read good. We read good, everybody. The Cayce family moved to Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and Edgar received a school year injury when he was struck in the spine with a ball. It is said that he acted wildly in class the rest of the day, shrieking with laughter. On the way home from school, he walked into the street and stopped traffic. So he's acting a little
weird,
erratic. He mystified his parents at home when he gave them detailed instructions to concoct an herb remedy to be applied to his injury while he slept. So he was kind of in a trance and he told them repeatedly to do this. And when he woke in the morning, he seemed to be back to normal with no memory of the incident whatsoever.
Really?
So this is our first case of him kind of doing what he will be famous for, but people think it was maybe the injury possibly mixed with already being clairvoyant, seeing his dead grandfather, that this kind of spurred thing on.
Yeah.
So because of his odd behavior, the local doctor, who is also the father of his crush, warned the young boy, just a nice little... I came across that detail. Warned the young boy that he may be in danger of losing his mind.
Okay.
He didn't exactly know what was going on with him, but he was acting pretty crazy the day before. This would plant a seed, though, in his mind that would pester him for the rest of his early life, wondering if his abilities were divine or malevolent in nature.
Okay.
When his grandmother passed, he was informed that her father also had supernatural abilities and could move tables and chairs with his mind. So a little telekinesis going on. Not so much the thinky ones.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I don't think I have any of that in my family. At least none.
No,
none
you've
that anyone
tried
said.
before.
I've tried hard, but no, I don't have any. So Cayce's education ended in the 9th grade because his family could not afford the cost, and a 9th grade education was often considered sufficient for working class at the time.
Yeah.
And he began working on the family farm.
Okay.
The family lived in poverty, and he was barely getting by, so they eventually moved into town to look for employment elsewhere. They're giving up on farming. Mm-hmm. When he was 18, he fell in love with Gertrude Evans, the prettiest girl in town. So said all the publications. I don't know who's judging this, though, you know?
Okay.
She came from the upper class, and he was a poor farm boy, but they connected on their spirituality. The two were quickly engaged, but the wedding would have to wait until Edgar could secure a better job.
Okay.
He wanted to get a little more financially stable.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nope. He still read the Bible once a year, attended church, taught Sunday school, and recruited missionaries. He said that he could see auras around people, spoke to angels, and heard voices of departed relatives. Mm-hmm. In his early years, he agonized about whether these prophetic abilities were spiritually derived or something darker.
Okay.
Very religious man. He worried that this could be witchcraft or something forbidden. He really
Fair.
He battled with this quite a bit. In 1900, Cayce formed a business partnership with his father to sell Woodman of the World insurance. They were traveling insurance salesmen going door to door.
Okay.
In March of that year, however, he developed severe laryngitis, which resulted in a complete loss of speech for him. He completely lost his voice. It was very raspy.
All right.
Unable to work, he lived at home with his parents for almost a year. Mm-hmm. Cayce then decided to take up photography, an occupation that would strain his voice less. Uh-huh. He began an apprenticeship at the photography studio of W.R. Bowles in Hopkinsville and became proficient in the trade.
Okay.
So we're just switching careers because he can't talk as much.
Right.
So here's when things start to get real mystical beyond a young guy saying he talks to angels.
Does he start taking pictures of the paranormal?
Nope, nothing to do with photography. He just happens to be into photography, and he will have...
maybe he captured,
No, it's all...
apparitions or like...
No, not this guy.
Disembodied.
Here's where it gets a little mystical.
Okay.
A traveling stage hypnotist and entertainer named Hart, who called himself the Laugh Man, performed in...
Mr. Smiley,
the Laugh Man, performed in 1901 at the Hopkinsville Opera House. Hart heard about Cayce's throat condition and offered to attempt a cure.
Okay.
Cayce accepted his offer, and the experiment was conducted in the office of Manning Brown, the local throat specialist. Mm-hmm. Cayce's voice reportedly returned while he was in a hypnotic trance, but disappeared when he awakened. Hart unsuccessfully tried a post-hypnotic suggestion that Cayce's voice would continue to function after the trance and be permanently restored, so putting the hypnotic effect after his awakening, trying to make it a permanent solution for him.
Right.
Since Hart had appointments in other cities, though, he could not continue his hypnotic treatment on Cayce. Mm-hmm. He said that he failed because Cayce would not enter the 3rd stage of hypnosis and accept a suggestion. A problem I think I have, I don't think I can be hypnotized because I'm not going to allow you in my brain. I'm not going to let anyone in my mind.
I feel like you could be easily hypnotized.
If I let you in, but I'll never let you in.
You fall asleep to meditations.
True. I let them in.
You do let them in.
I let those go in. New York hypnotist John Duncan Quackenboss, not a great name for credibility.
Not at all.
Found the same impediment with him where he was unable to get him into the 3rd stage of hypnosis.
Okay.
He suggested that Cayce should take over his own case in the 2nd stage of hypnosis, which I believe means he'll take over the hypnotizing himself once put under. Mm-hmm. So maybe some trust issues. Don't blame him. Don't let them in.
Right.
I'm with him.
But you do.
It's different. The only local hypnotist, Al Lane, offered to help Cayce regain his voice. When Al Lane put Cayce into trance, Cayce communicated vocally. Edgar in a trance said, "Yes, we can see the body." He described his condition, saying that it was a circulatory issue with his throat. He said that this could be corrected by suggestion. So this is him in a trance now. He's out saying, "Yes, I see the body. It's a circulatory problem with Edgar Cayce's throat," but he's talking about himself in 3rd person.
Right.
And that we can fix this with suggestion.
Okay.
Cayce told Lane to give him a suggestion to increase blood circulation to his throat.
Okay.
Lane gave the suggestion. Cayce's throat reportedly turned bright red, and after 20 minutes, Cayce was still in a trance but declared that his treatment was over. On awakening, he sat up and spat blood, which is alarming, but his voice was said to have remained normal. He would have occasional relapses with his...
just like, bleh.
Yep, just a little, gotta get that out. It's increasing the circulation.
Yeah.
He would have occasional relapses with his voice, but he was reportedly able to correct it with local hypnotist Lane's assistant.
Say with a little bit more blood spat.
Just a little cough here and there. So Lane asked Cayce to then describe Lane, the hypnotist, his ailments, and to also suggest cures for him.
Okay.
So while he's under, he's like, well, that's working good for you. Maybe there's something you can do for me.
Right.
So while he was under, Cayce replied with accurate ailments and suggested cures, and they worked.
Huh.
So Lane considered Cayce's ability clairvoyance and suggested that he offer physical diagnostic service to the public. So this is not
interesting.
This is not Edgar Cayce's idea, but the hypnotist is like, this is great. You should do some doctoring.
Yeah.
And Cayce was reluctant since he had no idea what he was prescribing while asleep and did not know if his remedies were safe.
Right.
Reasonable thinking. He doesn't want to be liable. He has no idea what he's saying while he's under a trance. But this quickly flipped from a man who was using hypnotic suggestion to revive his voice to offering medical advice while in a trance. That's where this story is going to go.
Okay.
So he told Lane that he did not want to know anything about a patient since it was not relevant.
Right.
He agreed on the condition that readings would be free and specified that if readings ever hurt anyone, he would never do another one.
Okay.
It's all reasonable.
Right.
I like this guy.
Yeah.
He began, with Lane's help, to offer free treatments to the townspeople. Lane described Cayce's method as a self-imposed hypnotic trance which induces clairvoyance. So this hypnotic trance is just somehow inducing his clairvoyance to click on.
Okay.
Reports of Cayce's work appeared in newspapers, which prompted a number of postal inquiries. And Cayce said that he could work as effectively with a letter from an individual as with a person present in the room. So given a person's name and location...
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So given their name and location, Cayce claimed that he could diagnose their physical and mental conditions of what he called the entity, being a human being writing for help. And he would provide a remedy. So as long as you just wrote in, told him where you were and your name, he could do it. So Cayce was still worried because one dead patient was all he needed to become a murderer.
Right.
And again, he still battled about his power and where this was coming from.
Yeah.
His fiancée agreed, and few people knew what he was doing. Hypnotic subjects were commonly believed to be susceptible to insanity or poor physical health. So he also had a fear of putting his own health at risk or providing medical help that could get him locked up or affect other people and make him crazy just because we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
In May 1902, Cayce got a job in a bookshop in Bowling Green, Kentucky. He also married his fiancée after a 6-year engagement, so
good for him.
They did it. They were eager to escape their association as the psychic doctor in their hometown and to start a new life. But word of his ability quickly spread, and he felt obligated to help people in need, which is what his whole goal is this whole time. He just wants to help people.
Right.
He boarded with several young professionals, 2 of whom were doctors. Cayce lost his voice again, and Lane came to help with the normal cure of suggestive trance therapy. During this time, he was still providing readings and still worried that his advice might harm someone. So Cayce kept the meeting secret and continued to refuse money for his sessions. This is going to be a common theme for him. He's never going to profit off this, and he's always going to be in financial dire straits. At the age of 29, Edgar was asked to show his readings to a group of doctors. They had been gathered as skeptics to disprove the rumors, but they were astounded when he accurately made diagnoses and prescriptions before them. The doctors took it a step too far, though, and they pushed needles in his hand and body and just tried to give him other suggestions and saw how far they could push it. And when he woke, he was very angry about this and vowed to never let anyone experiment on him again.
Rightfully so.
Which isn't entirely true. He actually ends up starting his own association, but this moment really bothered him.
Yeah.
So to make some money, he invented Pit, or Board of Trade, a card game which simulated the wheat market trading. This game became popular, but when he sent the idea to Parker Brothers, the game company copyrighted it. And
Monopoly?
Yeah. Essentially,
really?
Essentially, but they took it from him, and he received no royalties for it. But
wow.
Yeah, but he invented
That's shitty as fuck.
Yeah, I know.
Poor guy.
Poor guy. So Cayce was still refusing money for his readings after this failure. And I'm pretty sure the game Monopoly was a similar intellectual theft, but not the exact same.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to be a game that would show the pitfalls of capitalism, but was flipped to celebrate it to win. And I think similar with his wheat stuff.
Yeah.
So he began making headway with his photography studios in 1906 and 1907.
So he never left photography.
That was always what he kind of went back to. He ended up enjoying it and liking it quite a bit.
Okay.
But fires burned down 2 of his studios and bankrupted him. He was also holding artwork from New York at the time that he was trying to flip. He was going to get into art dealing. So that sent him a further $8,000 in debt of paintings that got burned up. So more bad financial career luck, unfortunately. But between the 2 fires, his first son was born on March 16th, 1907.
Okay.
And he becomes debt-free again by 1909. So he turns things around quickly. And he was ready to start again. He was forced into move with his wife's family, who were disappointed in him and not big fans. So he's back in Hopkinsville.
Yeah.
And again, he refused an offer to go into business, this time with homeopath Wesley H. Ketchum, who was introduced to him by his father. So homeopath, a little maybe like snake oily guy, but he ended up finding a job at H.P. Tressler Photography Firm instead, doing what he loves. There we go.
Yeah.
Ketchum was a promoter who had a popular medical column. He ended up getting a full frontal page of Cayce published in the New York Times about his readings and trance.
Yeah.
And he was inundated with letters from readers asking for help after that. So that was kind of without his permission, but Ketchum was really persistent in getting Cayce to join his company. So after some soul searching for a night, Cayce accepted the offer under certain conditions, including the usual that he's not going to take any money for any of the readings. It's going to be free for the patients. And that Ketchum help him financially for new photography studios. So he's essentially saying, I'll do it, but we're not going to charge people and you're going to finance my passion instead.
Right.
So not terrible.
Yeah.
He's making a good turn for himself on this one. So he fell into a routine of doing 2 readings a day at 45 minutes each. His father would conduct the readings as the stenographer recording the sessions. Cayce read back the transcripts of his readings, but they contained so many technical terms that he could not understand what he was doing or saying.
Interesting.
Because again, it's a lot of medical advice and diseases he's not even aware of.
Right.
So doctors were asking him medical questions and he was giving medical answers for things he had never studied.
Yeah.
Edgar's second son was born very ill with whooping cough. Whooping. He tried to provide a reading to cure the boy, but unfortunately declared that nothing could be done to save him.
Oof.
And he was correct, and he died within 2 weeks.
Damn.
His wife Gertrude fell into a deep depression and ended up becoming sick herself.
Oof.
But Gertrude was ill with tuberculosis, which also had killed her brother, and at the time was obviously, it was TB, it was pretty deadly.
Yeah.
She appealed to Edgar to do a reading for her, but he was terrified and was dragging his feet because he was scared it was going to be the same as his son. He's like, what if I see that there is no cure and I lose the love of my life? And he couldn't handle that. But eventually...
did he cave and do it?
He did do it. And this was said to be a turning point in his life. He ended up, they relied on Edgar's reading to provide a cure of just ointments and ailments and nutrition. And it ended up working. She turned it around and she ended up living.
Oh, okay.
So in 1912, Cayce...
Give him a little boost of confidence.
Yeah,
huh?
so that turned things around a little bit. In 1912, Cayce discovered that Ketchum and his father had not been honest with him and had gambled with their money. He didn't go by what he said.
Yeah.
They had been using the readings to ask about markets and horse racing, gambling on the side, which infuriated Edgar, who was also very religious, let's remember.
Yeah.
So Cayce quit the company immediately and returned to the photography firm in Selma, the Tressler company.
Right.
He had sworn off readings, but once again was pulled into work after his 6-year son dropped a match into a bucket of flashlight powder, badly damaging his eyes.
Oh my God.
So just literally dropped a match into essentially gunpowder. The doctors told him that he wouldn't regain his sight. So they once again were like, well, let's do a reading and see what Cayce says. So instead of following the doctor's remedies of removing the damaged eyes and just he's going to be blind from now on, they used a dangerous remedy of tannic acid on his eyes.
Why?
Which ended up saving his sight and restoring his eyes. Somehow that worked, though.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't know how, but it did it. Following World War I, Edgar's dream of building a hospital to provide readings and remedies was reborn. He was frustrated that people didn't always follow his directions accurately and that there were so many people returning for more that he could help. In particular, he thought that he would be able to help soldiers recover from shell shock and mental illness and just PTSD.
Yeah.
In which there is like a precedent for that in just like trance and hypnotic state. So that was kind of where he was coming from. To make the dream of the hospital come true, he met with entrepreneurs who wanted to use his reported clairvoyance for their own greedy uses. Something he's not
surprised.
Not great. He's not comfortable with it, but it's something he's done again to flip, you know?
Right.
Although he was reluctant to help them, he was persuaded to give readings that left a poor taste in his mouth. A cotton merchant offered him $100 a day for readings about the cotton market.
Oh my God.
But despite his poor finances, Cayce refused the merchant's offer.
Yeah.
Some people wanted to know where to hunt for treasure. Other people wanted to know the outcome of horse races, like his father. But Cayce still just wanted to use his ability to help those in need, if at all.
Right.
Cayce ended up getting into the oil business with his friend. So this is when he turns his ability for himself a little bit. He spent.
Well, I mean, it's about time though. He's been like doing things for others and not taking anything, and people are just taking advantage of him.
So he spent 3 years in Texas, and Edgar provided the dig site for locations from his readings.
Yeah.
But the oil never came.
Okay.
Life got increasingly dangerous as well for the oil workers, and they had to arm themselves from saboteurs who kept attacking their campsite and dig sites. So eventually they ran out of money and they just had to give up. He realized that his readings were becoming unreliable. It seemed he's only accurate when helping other people, but when it's for profit, it seems very inaccurate.
Yeah.
So he still hadn't given hope on the hospital, though. So before returning home, he traveled the country looking for wealthy investors. And he did actually end up raising potential interest in raising $60,000 for a hospital in Alabama. Wow. Yeah, the dream's coming true. But everybody pulled out when he revealed that he had a vision that told him the hospital had to be located in Virginia Beach, Virginia, which at the time was just a small fishing town, very not populated. There wasn't really anything
just like
there.
Very remote.
Yeah, so everybody thought he was crazy and pulled out just because it didn't work for investors.
Yeah.
He also said that apparently the ocean increased his abilities, so he'd be able to do more good next to the ocean as well. But everybody bailed, the dream fell apart, and he's coming home.
Okay.
Arthur Lammers, a wealthy printer and student of metaphysics, persuaded Cayce to give readings on philosophical subjects.
I thought you were going to say philanthropy.
On philanthropy, no. Well, he would love that, but sadly, no.
Yeah.
On philosophical subjects in 1923. So he wants to just use this trance and hypnotic state to maybe get into some mystical, weird stuff.
Yeah.
He told Cayce that in his trance state, he spoke about Lammers' past lives and reincarnation.
Okay.
So we're getting away from medical advice now and stepping more into time-related visions. Reincarnation was a popular contemporary subject, but is not an accepted part of Christian doctrine. And because of this, Cayce questioned his stenographer about what he said in his trance state and remained unconvinced. This was kind of messing with his moral compass a bit.
Yeah.
He challenged Lammers' statements that he had violated astrology and reincarnation, two ideals that went against his faith. This is the problem with his gift. He really doesn't have control or memory of what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's just lost in the trance.
Right.
So now we're going to move into the Dayton period of his life. Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
From 1923 to 25-ish, roughly.
Yeah.
So Lammers asked Cayce to come to Dayton to pursue the metaphysical truth via the readings, and Cayce eventually agreed. Gertrude, his wife, is also dubious, also religious and spiritual, as we said, but interested and agreed to the idea. Cayce produced considerable metaphysical information in Dayton, which he tried to reconcile with his Christianity. Lammers asked Cayce about reincarnation and past lives, and Edgar was astounded to read back these readings that ran counter to his belief. So because of all this, though, he pores back over the Bible and found some solace under some close examination and interpretations, which he drew that he considered examples of reincarnation within Christianity. Maybe not so blatant in your face, but things he interpreted as reincarnation.
Okay.
So he ended up referring to these readings as life readings as opposed to his physical readings when he's like just diagnosing things. So life readings are his reincarnation things, physical are diagnosis. He performed past life readings on all of his family, all of which had past lives and were frequently interacting with each other within these lives.
Interesting.
So he finds that people tend to correlate with each other in every life. This new experience inspired Edgar to explore other religious beliefs and contemporaries like Hinduism, all the way to like ancient Greece and ancient Egyptian beliefs. He's starting to kind of expand his knowledge and his spiritualism a little bit here, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Lammers, who wanted to determine the purpose of Cayce's clairvoyant readings, wanted to put up some money for an organization supporting Cayce's healing method. So he actually wants to do like some study here and get to the bottom of it. So Cayce decided to accept the work and asked his family to join him in Dayton as soon as possible.
Right.
By this time, the Cayce family arrived near the end of 23. However, Lammers was in financial difficulties and the proposition was falling apart. So right when he's getting his family here, all the finances fell through.
Seems like it's a common theme with him.
Yeah, he really has bad business luck. At this time, Cayce directed himself to readings centered around health, getting back to what he likes, just helping people for free, unfortunately. Well, good for him, though. Trying to help the needy. The remedies reportedly channeled often involved electrotherapy, ultraviolet light, diet, massage, less mental work and more relaxation.
Nice.
And they were noticed by the American Medical Association. And Cayce felt that it was time to legitimize his operation and get licensed with the medical practitioners. Because this whole time, he's very blatant. I'm not a doctor. He's putting that out there, which I like about this guy. He's never trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. It's always people trying to use him, you know? So he reported that in a trance in 1925, the voice advised him to move to Virginia Beach, Virginia, which it did before in a vision.
Right.
So this
he
is
did it?
The Virginia Beach period from 25 to 45.
Okay.
This is when Cayce finally created the institution which survives him.
Okay.
By this time, he was a professional psychic with a small staff of employees and volunteers. A secretary, Gladys Davis, joined back in Ohio. She felt a calling to help Edgar's cause and joined the crew to transcribe the readings in shorthand.
Okay.
She became part of the family and was said to also have a pretty photographic memory herself. She was a computer, they said.
Interesting.
So Cayce's readings increasingly had occult or esoteric themes, which is interesting because he's uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
Morton Blumenthal, who worked in the New York Stock Exchange with his brother, became interested in the readings and shared Cayce's vision and offered to finance his dream. Blumenthal bought the Cayces a house in Virginia Beach to allow him to start his hospital. And the next summer, construction began on Cayce's hospital.
It's about damn time.
Someone just gave him the house, gave him the hospital.
Yeah.
At this time, Virginia Beach, as I was saying, was just a sleepy fishing town, and everyone thought this was a crazy investment because no one was going to go there for this.
Yeah.
With the Blumenthals, he created a corporation, the Association of National Investigation. Dope name, kind of. Their goal was to conduct research on science, education, health, and spiritual awakening pursuits. All dope. Dope pursuits. It was at this time that his mother passed away, unfortunately. He ended up reconciling with his father finally after the whole financial thing, after her funeral. And his father ended up coming to live with him in Virginia Beach in the house.
Really?
Or at least nearby, yeah.
Interesting.
They really got back together. To protect against prosecution, anyone requesting a reading was required to join the association and agree that they were participating in an experiment in psychic research. So
I mean, that's basically covering his ass anyways.
Yeah, and everybody's just, you have to say it's free treatment, but you can't
just disclaimer.
Yeah, it's not gonna,
and you're consenting.
Yeah. Smart.
Yeah, 100% smart.
Mosley Brown, head of psychology department at Washington and Lee University, became convinced of the readings and joined the association in early 1928.
Okay.
They were the only hospital of their kind where physical ills could be diagnosed and prescribed with psychic readings. And possibly the only one still. I was trying to find more research on that, but the internet's a wild place. It was hard to say. But on October 11, 1928, the dedication ceremony of the hospital complex was held. The complex contained a lecture hall, library, vault for storage of the readings, and offices for researchers. There was also a living room, a 12-car garage, servants' quarters, and tennis courts.
Oh,
so
fun.
it had some leisure for everybody as well.
Nice.
Its first patient was admitted the following day. The facility enabled checking and rechecking the remedies, which was Cayce's goal for the practice. So he does the ratings, gives the remedies, and then someone's prescribing and actually delivering it to him and checking the results, actually. There were consistent remedies for many illnesses, regardless of the patient and the ailment they had. He did tend to regurgitate a lot of the same stuff. But Cayce hoped to produce a medical book for use of medical practitioners to use and professionals.
Yeah.
A chemist who also used clairvoyant knowledge to produce medicines collaborated with Cayce.
Who is this guy?
Shankar A. Bissi. They actually worked together with their voodoo and clairvoyance to make
like a tonic?
Atomic iodine. They made atomidine.
I thought you were going to say like a tonic.
No, a product's still available today. Atomic iodine, and I'm having a hell of a time saying it because it's atomidine. Okay. Seems a lot of his cures had to do with nutrition and the digestive system, which, a lot of people say.
I feel like it's a common thing even today.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe he's going somewhere with that. So it was a lot of specific diets. He would apply low levels of electricity, similar to procedures done with chiropractics today. So a lot of his stuff is kind of just new agey healing stuff that there might be something to it. He predicted that one day people would be able to take one drop of blood and make a diagnosis, and people thought he was insane.
Well,
you can do it today.
Yeah.
Also, remember, he has no medical background and he has no memories of his reading, so it makes it all even wilder. So Blumenthal had committed Blumenthal had committed $3,000 a month to keep the hospital running, as well as a $10,000 investment to build the facility itself.
Okay.
It's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because of his generosity, Edgar reluctantly agreed to perform financial readings as long as he was informed of the questions beforehand. Mm-hmm. On April 6, 1929, Blumenthal sought advice on the stock market, and Cayce warned that there would surely be panic on the market soon. And he was correct, because 6 months later, the stock market crashed, marking the beginning of the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
So not good news for financial readings for the future, because you can't do too much with that other than pull out now.
Right.
Unfortunately, the hospital failed 3 years later after opening due to the unstable economy. It did have an effect. Devastated, Edgar was said to walk the empty halls of the facility, collecting keepsakes, including a framed photo of his mother to remember his accomplished dream.
Aww.
Yeah. He had managerial problems handling the money also, apart from the Great Depression, though. He spent extravagant amounts on extravagant items. He offered a lot of free treatments and meals to his patients because he was a giving guy, so they just weren't making any money, unfortunately. He was also giving free treatment to staff and friends, so just a lot of free stuff.
Yeah.
He was kind and a people pleaser, but he wasn't a good businessman. All he wanted to do was help people with his gift.
Right.
It was also said that there was a power struggle between his financier to see who could use his gift for the financial gain. So the Blumenthals lost control and walked out and just pulled money after they lost access to Edgar's brain.
Yeah.
So Edgar always blamed himself for its failure, and he walked away flat broke again. But he got the hospital for a few years.
I know.
During the Depression, Cayce turned his attention to spiritual teachings. In 1931, his friends and family asked him how they could become psychic. So out of this apparent simple question became an 11-year...
He said, sleep on a book.
So just sleep on a book, guys. It's that easy. But he ended up having an 11-year discourse, which led to the creation of study groups.
Okay.
So in this altered state, Cayce relayed to the groups that his purpose of life is not to become psychic, but to become a more spiritually aware and loving person. That's our goal. Not to be psychic. We're just becoming spiritually aware.
Yeah.
Study group number 1 was told that they could still bring a light into a waiting world, and the lessons would still be studied in 100 years.
Okay.
The readings were now about dreams, coincidence, synchronicity, developing intuition, the Akashic records, astrology, past life, relationships, soulmates, and other esoteric subjects.
And nutrition.
On June 6, 1931, 61 people attended a meeting to carry on Cayce's work and form the Association of Research and Enlightenment, ARE. I believe still in existence.
Is it?
I believe so. In July, the new association was incorporated, and Cayce returned his house to Blumenthal and bought his own. So he's completely out from that deal now.
Yeah.
He also ran into some bad luck with the law, unfortunately.
What?
While in New York, a desperate woman asked him for a reading, which he agreed to.
Okay.
She ended up being an undercover cop, and Edgar, Gertrude, and the secretary were all charged for fortune telling. So it was totally...
Oh, come on.
They totally set him up, and he didn't want to do it, but they got him for that. The charges were later dismissed, but he was also charged in Detroit for practicing medicine without a license. Mm-hmm. This, too, would also be dropped, but it got tabloid headlines, and he was always mortified that he was going down the wrong path, as he always feared.
Right.
So he hits a low point here. He lost his hospital. He lost his mother.
Yeah.
He's the tabloid thing.
Right.
And then I lost my spot. It's bad for everybody. So he hits his low point here, and he's discouraged that he's made no difference with his ability at all. Mm-hmm. This is when he has his dream. Okay. It's of him reincarnated in the year 2100, where he was proud to discover that his teachings of Edgar Cayce were still relevant and being discussed. Okay. So reinvigorated by this...
We're not that far.
No. His readings began to grow in detail and subject matter. Mm-hmm. He tried the best of his ability to describe the journey his consciousness would go on while under his trance state. Yeah. He said he was moving up through a beam of light with passing images and sounds. His consciousness moved to other dimensions that are related to vast sources of information. He called this information the Akashic Record. Mm-hmm. This is something that's come up in the podcast before and just in general in conversations. All right. For first-time listeners, a little recap. The Akashic Record is said to be a compendium of all universal events, thoughts, words, emotions, and intent ever to have occurred in the past, present, or future in terms of all entities and life forms, and not just human. Mm-hmm. So it's believed essentially it's the records of all existence. Right. On a non-physical plane. So Edgar believed that he could access this plane of information as well as gain access to people's subconscious. Mm-hmm. He had an explosion of esoteric readings at this time, discussing the past, present, and future. So this is when we get into the future telling a little bit. He's getting real kooky now. Okay. His personal life readings produced 17 different reincarnations. He described the lost civilization of Atlantis more than 700 times, describing a highly advanced society that collapsed after a rule of more than 40,000 years. He talks a lot about Atlantis, and then a lot of people who believe in his work really not defend the Atlantis thing, but be like, his mind was slipping. they tried well, maybe. In 1935, he predicted that Germany and Japan would form an alliance and become a world threat. Cayce attained national prominence in 1943 after the publication of Miracle Man of Virginia Beach in the Coronet magazine. World War II was taking its toll on American soldiers, and Cayce felt that he could not refuse families who requested helps for loved ones who were missing in action. So getting kind of more into the spiritualism movement kind of stuff here, but he increased the number of readings to 8 per day from his 2.
8?
In an attempt to reduce the ever-growing backlog of the requests he was still getting.
45 minutes, though?
That I don't know. I don't know if he's shortening up the time. Okay. Cayce said that his health was afflicted by this, though.
No shit.
It was emotionally draining, and also it was just physically fatiguing for him. Yeah. From June 1943 to June 1944, Cayce did about 1,385 readings. Ooh. And by August of 1944, he collapsed from the strain of him doing so much. When he took a reading of his situation, he instructed himself to rest until he was well or dead. Not great news.
A little extreme.
Yeah, not great. He and Gertrude went to Virginia, the Virginia mountains, and he had a stroke on September and died January 3rd, 1945 at the age of 67.
Oh, wow. He was young.
Yep. Cayce is buried at the Riverside Cemetery in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and Gertrude died 3 months later on.
Aww.
Yeah, they were...
Do you think she died of heartbreak?
Probably. They were sweethearts. They had a cute little thing going. Aww. So the association continued classifying and cross-referencing.
That's going to be me when Luca passes.
That's our dog, and hopefully not. Hopefully you can make it past that, because I need you. So the association continued classifying and cross-referencing over 14,000 files of readings, which have been taken from March 31st, 1901 to September 17th, 1944, and the results have been disseminated into publications. So we talked a lot about his life. What were some of his predictions? Here are some of the big ones. He said that the poles would shift in 1936, resulting in massive geological changes. This didn't happen. Okay, actually, first, here's a list of some of his wrong predictions, just to let you know. You know, some people take a stab in the dark, but I do have a thing about this, though. He also said the U.S. would lose both coasts and Atlantis would emerge off the coast of Florida by 1969. That didn't happen. It seems any of his predictions involving Atlantis were inaccurate, and that's where people say his mind might have been slipping in the end there. He himself described seeing images from other universes as well, saying that the future is not fixed and that we have the ability to change our future. So in his mind, Future's not fixed. You can change this. But also, I do wonder if sometimes he was seeing other universes, parallel universes, and not maybe specifically our future or our past, because he does have accurate readings and he did seem like an honest guy, but some of his things are outlandish, kind of. So I don't know about those ones. We will live long, he says. Now, we find there are many changes in the body since we have had this, many for good. Many of the organs and the conditions show the changes as come about. Okay, so essentially we're going to live forever. I'm not going to read his quotes exactly because it's boring. But he essentially said man should live much longer than has been ordinarily given, and will is how it ends. So that's good.
Okay.
New system. There's going to be war in the Middle East. But he said, so a lot of the problem with these are that he was wrong about some of them. So it calls a lot of this into question.
Throw some more at me.
The powers of light and darkness, as then, as 1600 years before, as in those periods, so today, we find nation against nation, the powers of death, destruction, the wrecking of that which has been and is held near and dear to our hearts, of those who have been through one form of another set ideals. So that's the problem. They're all kind of long, poetic, almost quatrains, but a little more specific than Nostradamus. But
yeah,
they're poetic instead of just saying these two countries are going to be at war. You know what I mean? So there's also still things that can be read from this. But strifes will arise through this period. Watch for them in Libya and Egypt and Syria. So he does kind of say the Middle East is going to have some fighting.
Yeah.
He did predict that. The Hall of Records. This is an interesting one. A lot of his stuff was kind of ancient alien-y, which makes him an interesting character. 10 years earlier, during a reading on the Great Pyramid in Egypt, Cayce suggested that an ancient Hall of Records would be discovered at a time signifying the manifestation of a new level of consciousness. So he thinks that there's a Hall of Records somewhere in Egypt under the Great Pyramids, that when we find that, we're going to have an awakening and a blow up.
Kind of like an Avatar?
Yeah, exactly like an Avatar.
Because they literally have a Hall of Records.
There might be one. Records of Atlantis. He also said that a record of...
Did he predict Avatar?
Yeah. Or they stole it for Avatar. That could also be The Last Airbender. Check that out.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Records of Atlantis. He talks about it a lot, so it's worth mentioning. A record of Atlantis from the beginning of those periods when the spirit took form or began the encasement in that land. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to read his quotes, but I do have just other... He also said the second coming was going to be coming pretty soon too, and that hasn't happened yet. I'm going to get past his quotes to just his main ones.
Okay.
The Earth's magnetic pole shifts. He was big on that, but he said it was going to happen in the 60s and he was wrong. Economic collapse. Cayce predicted that there would be a major economic collapse, and there have been. I mean, one, he predicted the Great Depression, but we've also had the recession and we're kind of in one now. So like, you can kind of just say that, and eventually.
But can't you say the poles are a little shifting?
The poles have shifted, but
right?
He said it was going to happen back in the 60s. It did happen now, which is why I'm thinking maybe he is seeing things, but he's just a little off on his timelines or universes. The return of Jesus Christ. Cayce believed that Jesus Christ would return to Earth and usher in a new era of spiritual enlightenment. So look forward to that. The discovery of Atlantis. We also said this was like 69, but apparently Atlantis is just off the
really,
coast of
really
Florida.
Heavy on Atlantis.
He's big on Atlantis.
But wouldn't it be cool though?
Yeah, it would be great. We'd probably get some technology. I like Disney's Atlantis.
I feel like people would exploit it though, for sure.
Yeah, of course. It'll be terrible. It's just what we do. And finally, the rise of a new world order. Cayce predicted that a new world order would emerge, and it's going to be more emphasis on spirituality. So those were his main predictions, but he did so much more than that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on someone who, through trance and maybe going into our dream state, he was able to connect to, like, we've talked a lot on this show about like the main subconscious, the Akashic records, kind of like a one unity kind of thing, that he might have been able to tap into that entity. What do you think about that?
Repeat that question.
What do you think about his ability? Do we believe in him? How does he fare as far as like our other soothsayers we've talked about?
I think I like him better.
This guy seems the most honest.
He just seems like a really nice guy.
And I did watch
He didn't want to be exploitative. Like, he didn't exploit his powers for himself, even though he tried with that oil thing. Even though it wasn't really, like...
Didn't work out for him.
No.
Any of the financial ones never worked out, it seems.
Yeah, but he just genuinely wanted to help people, and that was his goal from day one.
Yeah, stand-up guy.
Yeah.
I do have one more soothsayer. I'm not sure if I'm going to touch on it. I might finally just jump subjects, but especially because this person's definitely a charlatan and a fake, but a very famous one.
Who?
Well, we'll leave you as a cliffhanger, but I might have one more coming up who is known as the most iconic psychic of the 20th century.
The 20th century?
Jean Dixon. Maybe I'll get to it. Maybe I won't, because I am a little bored of this and I would like to switch subjects, but... Thank you for listening to Soothsayers Seeing the Future Part 2. If you like what you heard, make sure you like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate and review. If you want more content, make sure to check out the whole Majestic Jam Network, Urban Hermit Podcast for banter, Cult Classics for movie, High Wire for music, and also make sure to check out the Twitch stream. We're going to be playing some scary games, Nicole and I. I'm also playing some...
Spooky, scary.
Yeah, some retro games. Look up Majestic Jam Network, Majestic Jam Productions, Majestic Jam Cam, some form of Majestic Jam on
Throw
Twitch.
It all in there.
I'll get you the real one at some point, but check you on the next one.
Bye-bye.